Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Geek First Review. I guess I can say the boy, but I'm the man, Trasnell. If you saw for the video people, I just had a very stupid smile on my face. That's because this is a soul cast, as you can see or hear, and there's no other people to bounce off, no other people to give the cue, so I just got to sit here and wait till it goes live and look all nice and awkward. And as I look at myself, oh, just perfect hair right now. That's being facetious. Just went to the beach because where I am right now, Kelowna, it is hot. It is just hot and hot and hot. And that's maybe a rant for another day because what I'm talking about today is the boys. I guess first thing to do is some cheap plugs out of the way. We reviewed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That was lots of fun. Everything from Comic-Con Phase 4 games. We reviewed Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. Next week, there'll be a Tarantino's ranking. So kind of to end our retrospective cast, we're going to rank all the movies, best scenes, best characters. We're going to kind of do a draft as far as, pick 5 actors that have been in Tarantino movies, 5 actors that haven't, and kind of make our dream roster as far as a Tarantino movie. There might be a Hobbs and Shaw review. That kind of all depends. I'm expecting my second child in the next few weeks, so as you can imagine, that is always in flux. So I'm intending on doing it, but I'm the only person on the channel that watches those. So if not, then say la vie. But that's kind of what you can look out for in the next little bit. We also have a Batman fan cast coming. I guess I should promote that in August. It's on Patreon right now, the $1 level. But if you want to get it early, you can go there. But if not, it's like what we've done for Spider-Man, what we did for the Fantastic Four and X-Men. We're fan casting and kind of in a draft NFL way. You pick that actor, they're off the table. We're doing that for Batman. Matt Reeves' Batman. Also, we got Robert Pattinson, and we cast a bunch of roles: Catwoman, Two-Face, Penguin, and so on and so forth. So, the boys. Speaking of comic books, so this is kind of fun for me because I'm a big comic books fan, but I always say I'm like, even with Marvel and DC, I feel like I'm like, if you have to do tiers, I'm like C plus B range. I know a lot of stuff, but I know I could say I know when this arc took this place on this date, or I've known every single storyline. I have a good basic, my huge knowledge is in like the Ultimates Marvel era and like the 2002 to now era. That's kind of my era because I was actually, alive reading comics, but I can honestly say I mostly stick to Marvel and DC. And the reason is, and if you've not joined for a Geek First review, whether it's a group one or a solo one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my opening here. I'm going to talk about my non-spoiler thoughts of show recommendation, and then I'll get you into spoilers. I'll let you know when I'll be jumping into spoilers. So if you hear what I like, you haven't seen the show, you go, I'd like to watch that for myself, then great. And you can pause and come back. If you don't care, you can listen. Or if you've seen the show, then you can listen to the spoilers review. So I'll drop the 3, 2, 1. Not going to say Geek First Assemble because I'm alone with my beach hair. Very, very bugging me. As you've listened, hardcore fans know hair's important to me, and it also needs a cut. It's beach hair, just the worst. Wind everywhere. But the boys, so big Marvel DC fan. And I got to give a big shout out to one of our longtime fans. I hope you're doing well because you took a break from Twitter. Good on you, because I wish I could, but you got to promote stuff sometimes on the podcast. So sometimes you just want to get away from it all. But Marvel Zombie Dude, friend of mine, he's been a friend of the page for a long time. He's one of our biggest supporters. Last year, November, Extra Life, he donated to our charity event, so that was great. Great fan. So this, all I'd heard was there's a comic book series, graphic novel. Like, it's not graphic novel, but gets turned into that. But I just knew, if you want to read it, here's that comic book series. Very rated R, going to Amazon Prime. Seth Rogen's behind it, and it's called The Boys. And I was like, this, sounds cool and whatnot. But I had seen him tweet about it, and I inquired, like, what's it about? What, give me the themes, give me kind of the vibe and whatnot. And he explained it and laid it out very perfectly, which we're talking about now. But I just remember that being on my radar and kind of go in the back of my mind, okay, I'll put that there. And I trust him, even though he does not think Hugh Jackman is the perfect Wolverine. You're always wrong about that, Marvel Zombie Dude. But I trust his comic book knowledge. And I was like, okay, so that's in the back of my mind. So shout out to him, because if I didn't get the recommendation from him, I like Seth Rogen a lot, but I don't know if I would have checked it out right away. So that's why I'm doing this review, because I kind of put that on the bucket list. Like, okay, I'm going to get to that. Show rolls around. I'd seen the first trailer, and that was about it. More trailers are rolling out, but I kind of got the sense, to be honest, as you can see, I'm here alone. If we weren't so busy, if we did this as a full-time career, I think people would be on this cast with me, but we got to use our time sparingly. And I kind of got the vibe, okay, I think I'm just going to be the only one reviewing or watching this. So I try to stay away from trailers that we don't have to talk about, because trailers nowadays just give a lot of crap away. So saw the first trailer, was intrigued, but knew nothing about it. And same thing as even the podcast, where I would love to catch up and read some of these graphics, graphic novels or comic books. But I can freely admit that anything that's not Marvel and DC, I usually don't give the time of the day. Not because of a bias, just because I'm already behind on Marvel and DC stuff. You know, like I make sure the things I always read day and date is usually Scott Snyder's Batman, whatever he's doing, whether it's Batman Who Laughs. Justice League, I'm kind of in and out on, to be honest, but his Batman stuff, I'm always reading, big fan of that. And then the last time Marvel one was probably the Tom Taylor X-23 all new Wolverine run, but I'm behind on a lot. Just life has been hectic, especially this summer. Try to read a little here, a little there. There's a Hulk series, Immortal Hulk, I hear is really great. I want to get into. So that's why it's not, I write off. It's just if I'm going to make time for reading comic books, and I try to do it at least once a week. Usually now it's probably once every 2 or 3 weeks, just especially this summer. I do make it Marvel DC because these are characters I already love and I'm established with, and I want to catch up on them. So I'd heard good things about this. Fan recommendation. We're going to have a war, so if there's ever pauses about that, that's what it is. So I was excited, liked the trailer enough, and then I don't really know what made me continue to watch it other than I think it was just Marvel Zombie Dude. Highly recommend it because I liked the trailer, but I was like, man, I'm super hyped. But I enjoyed it a lot, but it wasn't like I need to see the show. It had me hooked, but anything with superheroes, I like to kind of give the time of day. You know, even some CW shows, some I love and some I go, but I usually try and give them a shot just to see. And I think I can... It's funny that this is coming out the same week, Once Upon a Time Hollywood, because I could maybe compare it to that, where I would say for me, personally, I think this is one of the best superhero shows ever done. I'll say live action, not animated, because that's throwing in Batman, that's throwing X-Men, that's throwing Spidey, Avengers, Earth Mightiest Heroes, Ultimate X-Men, X-Men Evolution. There's a lot. So let's just go live action, because animation, they're running on that S tier. Live action... This is up there for me. I think when I say for me, because I could say a show like Daredevil where I could recommend to almost anybody. There's a few people I go, it's not for you, but it's not so maybe bloody. It's not so sex-oriented or drug-oriented or very hard R. Daredevil has R-rated stuff, but really it's kind of like a PG-15. You know, there's no nudity. I don't think they ever dropped the F word, if I'm correct, in any of those shows. If they do once, like they're a lot more bloody and violent, but we somehow can get away with that sort of stuff. So it's, you know, a light rated R. I could even say that, where this is going for a full R, and this is the best way I could describe it. And this is why I think it's a bit more tangible for people, because I think it's very much like Watchmen. You have a meta-ness, you have a commentating on the superhero genre, and not even in a way of just in like superhero worlds, like, oh, we've seen this before. Like, so the way I would explain it is lots of times something like a Deadpool, which I'm going to say this show is like a Watchmen meets Deadpool, where you look at Watchmen, they comment on a lot of the tropes, but they're kind of doing that tongue-in-cheek, or they're doing that throughout the story. Like, no, we wouldn't do that. Like, or like capes, you know, something like that. Don't wear capes, which Incredibles kind of stole, but they comment on tropes, but it's not kind of shining a light on them. This does take the Deadpool route, where it's not fourth wall breaking, but it does show a lot of the tropes. But what I like about it is it's not just commenting on superhero tropes. You got the Seven in here, which you got a kind of carbon copy of Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, things like that. So they're doing all these fun stuff that kind of what, like I said, what Deadpool 1 and 2 or comics have done, where taking stuff we know and love of comic books and maybe turning on its head, looking at the satirical part of it. But it's looking also at us as a culture. And this is where it's fun, because lots of times, for the most part, other than like Eternals coming up, most part I have a general knowledge to good knowledge of comic books, and whether that's the character or storyline, I go, oh yeah, that's par for the course. This is where, if you're looking for the hardcore review, I'm a big fan of this show, I'm gonna let you know, but I have not read the comic books. I want to read them, but at the same time, this season ended very good, and I want to wait, so I'm at this tough landing spot where I might have to, you know, sketch some time in there. But what they do is that impressed me, but at the same point, people have done that. Incredibles have kind of eye winked at comic book movies and superhero movies. Deadpool, other people have done it. Spider-Verse, Lego Batman. But what they did, and this is where I'm not sure, I think it would be in the comic books, but I think it's probably updated for us, it's newer. But like I said, I'm just going to be talking about the show. Whatever happened in the comic books, I can't compare, so that's your asterisk for a review if you're looking for someone that's read the comic books. They comment a lot on today's society and not just issues as far as race. And because I'll say this, there's one moment where they do talk about race. They shine a light on it, but they do talk about just issues we're all dealing with, whether it's race, whether it's women empowerment, whether it's dealing with women being abused. Especially you look at the past few years with the Me Too movement, kind of tackles that. But it also just tackles the way, someone like a Disney would run, and not in the sense I'm saying they're an evil corporation, but how, and this is minor spoilers for the show, but how the Voight works. They're kind of the shield. They look after all these superheroes, and they're called the Seven. And there is only 7 of them, and kind of when one team member maybe passes away or vanishes or retires, they plug new people in there. And they run this team, and you would think, okay, they're like the Nick Fury to, their Avengers. They are, but then they've taken the full-on approach of these superheroes are actually in TV shows and movies, just acting as themselves, not in reality shows, doing full-on movies. They're talking about, if you tweet this out, this is your percentage here. You're hitting really good with the male demographic here, but the woman demographic's not doing so well. Or the male demographic's kind of light. Can you wear this sleazy outfit? They take this approach that is commenting on superheroes in storyline, but now commenting on superheroes in our world, what we're going through. Because you look at this year, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, Avengers Endgame. First, all 3 of those first ever MCU year to have $3 billion movies, and Endgame just beat Avatar, become the biggest one ever. And lots of people always go, is there superhero fatigue? It's just because some people that don't like superhero movies are waiting for the shoe to drop, and it just hasn't. It's just like swallowing up our culture, which I love because I've been reading this stuff since I'm 5, but I can get how maybe that could be a little overbearing, and it kind of goes into that, and how these heroes are a hero to the point, but that's not the bottom line. And what some characters, more than others, care about is more about their 401k, more about how do I look on this poster? What am I doing? Does this even make sense? It's like they have become heroes, and this is as minor spoiler as I'll go, and I think you can see that's from the trailers. They became heroes, but they've lost the entire point of what it means to be a hero, and that's what I really was impressed by, because like I said, we've seen the wink at tropes before, but this was kind of taking an approach from our world. And I'm sure if the comic books do that, if they do, I applaud that. But this feels, the best way I can say it feels very current to right now. This show could come out at many other times and could work. But I think especially right now with the age we're living in, look at Comic-Con Phase 4, people are so excited, Endgame. It just wraps up everything right now that's going up in as far as, and even not even just superhero movies, but how you could imagine what might happen if superheroes were around. Okay, they're out there, they're saving people, but then there'd be somebody. How can we market this? And I guess it's kind of similar to Incredibles 2. They do that a little bit, but that takes a less, minor spoilers for Incredibles, takes a less cynical route. This is very cynical. This is very supposed to be like all those people that go, oh, there's a monotony with Disney and they're trying to take over everything. This is definitely for you. Like, you would appreciate this. So the main plot of this is you have a team. I get they're not really a team, but they're just the boys, and all these respective people, and this is where I'm not getting into spoilers, it's just this is the setup of the show, have problems with the soups. That's what they call them. They're all superpowered individuals. They all have problems with them some way. Maybe they've been screwed over. Maybe there's been an accident. I don't want to say too much, but they have good reason. And lots of them aren't just a comedic. I think they kind of present that at the beginning of just, it's a wild bunch of wacky people taking down superheroes. Are they crazy? What's their deal? As the show goes on, you really do learn, and what I would say as far as what's revealed for almost every character, I'll talk about that in cons after, it feels like every character has a motivation in the show for the most part. I think there's 2 glaring ones. Well, there's another one, but he's a superhero called, what is it, Black Noir, I think? Yeah, Black Noir, and he's just someone that's cool. He's just a badass. He doesn't speak. He's just there for action. So that's like, okay, you're like the Boba Fett of this group. You're the Deadpool. He's not cracking jokes. He's just a cool-looking guy. But for the most part, your boys, the people on the 7, and then we have a character that for the first time is kind of, I won't say caught in the middle, but she is aspiring here, and she's brought into the 7, so you get to see her going to establish teams. So you kind of have these 3 main arcs of, you got the 7, who some people may be shading there, some people might be trying to save the day, some people are trying to make a buck. You got Starlight, who is going into 7, just learning the world, living her dream, and finding, is this what she really wanted, or is this, what she wants, but it's just harder than she thought. And then you have the boys that all have bad things that have happened to them or their loved ones, and they want to take down the soups because maybe the soups aren't as good as they appear to be. And I think they just, 1, nail that dynamic fantastically, and 2, as I was referring to earlier, all the main characters, the important characters, all have great motivations. Even I don't even want to say the villain, but even the main villain, I'd say, of the story has motivations, and they could go for, and it feels like at times you might go, oh, they're just going to go for the crazy, overly powerful villain. They kind of hint at that, but then there's layers to it, and I can't wait. I will talk about it in spoilers. Main characters are great. The girl, it's funny that the character that plays or the actress that plays Starlight isn't Jessica Jones. She's really good. I think she's probably the standout of the show. And then the main guy too. Well, I don't know if I can say that. They're all really good, actually, for the most part. Jack Quaid, who plays Huey Campbell, pretty much feels like a clone of Adam Brody. Like they wanted Adam Brody, but he was too old, so they got him. And then who's the other guy I want to shout out because I've never seen him in anything? Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander. I'll get into that more in spoilers because he has a very different type of storyline. But he is the Superman-esque of this team. He pulls that off really well, and anything else I would say would spoiler what his journey is, and I'd want people to enjoy that. But I just think he actually did that phenomenally. He looks like Michael Fassbender and John Hamm had a kid. Well, actually, sorry, Michael Fassbender from Prometheus and John Hamm had a kid because he has that David type of look, but then he has the voice of John Hamm. He does his role really well, and I thought he did a great job of making this character layer because there's all this character does and has, and it could have easily been, he has a lot, but at the same time, it could easily be a flat note character. If you've watched it, you know what I mean. It could be one note, like, okay, you are the Superman-esque hero, because that's some of my problem with Superman is he is just kind of one note. And then, finally, I will shout out probably a few more things before I get into spoilers, but Karl Urban. I have a strange relationship with him because I've always liked him, but I've never loved him. And I always remember any time after Christian Bale was done as Batman and it was casting Ben Affleck, and even this time casting for Robert Pattinson, I'd see Karl Urban shout out all the time. And I never thought Karl Urban was a bad actor. I enjoyed him in Lord of the Rings. I enjoy him in the Star Trek movies. I enjoyed, I think, the one pilot or two episodes I watched where he had like that robot cop partner, you know. But I've never seen him do anything great, in my opinion. Because, and maybe those roles weren't set to be, but I'd never looked at him like, that could be Batman or that could be a leading man. And even with Thor Ragnarok, like, oh, this could be the time. And then, you know, look at my stuff. So, he really impressed me. He is, I'd say, the heart and soul of the show. He is this weird mix of a Wolverine and almost Jack Sparrow-like character. He's badass, but he's not quipping, but he just has these, and I would appreciate these analogies and these stories that are just wild. And that's what I should say about the show overall. It's very wild. It's very hard rated R. And I guess I kind of completely dropped that storyline. You're talking about my review. If you don't like a Deadpool, if you don't like a Watchmen, I'd say this isn't for you. It has the comedy and the brutality of Watchmen, but then it also has the layers and world building and similar themes to a Watchmen. So if you like those type of ones and more hard R-rated superhero projects, this is for you. If not, if something like what I was talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you should know by kind of those words, my recommendations. If you've not seen those, then I don't know, you gotta go in blind. But if you've seen those, that to me is kind of the gauge. They kind of have some weird love child that is the boys. And he is a character that fits right in there. He doesn't feel cheesy. He doesn't feel overly performed. And Karl Urban at times has to bring like a lot of nuance and gravitas to it. And he did that really well. So I just got to do a big shout out to him. And he's on my radar now. He's not a guy I'm going to write off. Be like, okay, I'll get a good performance out of him. This is now, I've seen what he can do, and it could be something great. And I think he's not the main character of the show because it's definitely an ensemble show, but it feels like he carries the weight of it a lot, and he's the most versatile, I'd say. So, great job by him. Anything else I'd say, I think I already touched upon this, but the world building is fantastic. Whether it is seeing these superheroes do signings, whether it is them doing these shows. There's one point where, this is a minor spoiler, where this guy named A-Train on the team, he's like their Flash. There's another superhero who's a speedster. They decide they're going to have a race, and it's this huge event. There's cameras everywhere and whatnot. And it feels like the world is always changing, and it feels like the world also is like alive and breathing, and it feels like it has a history, a past, because they've talked about these heroes have been around for a while, and they do a really good job of that. You feel, even in the first episode, you feel the world as the show continues. It grows and grows, but the first episode you feel like you got a gauge of what this world is, and you understand the rules of it. And I was talking about earlier with Starlight. It's funny that she's in Jessica Jones, because I think Jessica Jones, the pilot, is one of my favorite Marvel Netflix pilots, because the way it ends, you're just hooked in that show and I got to watch it all. That's kind of how this is. And I feel if you watch the first episode and it wasn't really for you, I think it does get better because the storylines get juicier, they get more developed, there's plot twists and turns. But if the vibe of the first episode doesn't gel with you, that's kind of the whole show, and then it gets turned up to 10. There's some wild stuff in here. Some really crazy comic booky stuff. For cons, I don't know if I have too many big ones. I would say this, if you won't stay around to the end, it's not going to get like a perfect score, because I think the episode number 8 was perfect. I think they right amount. They were all about an hour, so I felt like I think it was all 8-hour show, or 8-hour experience, but that was good. I'd say my 2 cons are, I was talking about the rated R-ness, and it is very gory. My con, so don't misunderstand me, my con is not that it is gory. My con is it is gory when they don't have the budget to show it. And I'll quickly spoil something, and not a big plot point, just some guy gets lasered in half, and that's crazy. There's people that have laser eyes like Superman, and you kind of like Brightburn, you see them just chopped in half with lasers. And something happens like that, and they go to the characters, they're all reacting, and they're all safe in this moment. So you kind of go, oh, they're going to move out on the scene. And then they quickly cut to the guy on the ground, and his kind of back spine area is split open. But it's all CG, and it's showing like something pulse in his back. That's fine. Like, I'm a guy that loves the Saw series. The gore doesn't bother me. When it's the cheap gore, when it doesn't work, when it takes you out of the world, you don't need to do that, because it wasn't good enough that it grossed me out. It just right away went, oh, that's CGI, and that one made me feel, oh, this is a TV show. Because TV shows, for the most part, still, they're getting better and better, but sometimes you still pick them out. I still remember everyone in Game of Thrones, Battle of Bastards. I'd say this last season really did a good job, but Battle of Bastards, oh, it looks just like a movie. There's so many times where it's just like, it just feels like Jon Snow is on a green screen. There's so many people running behind him and horses, and that's where you don't want to feel like a TV show. That's my worry with The Mandalorian coming out. You don't want to go to... And because to be honest, someone might think, oh, that's an insult. You don't want to feel like a TV show. You don't want to feel lesser than. And to me, when you see some of the CGI in this show, lots of it does work. And I feel like they use a lot of it really well. They'll use shadows and trickery. But there's just sometimes where they do it, and it's like, you didn't need to show that. It didn't add anything to the scene, and it just made the show look kind of low budget. And I would say, I'm not going to say which characters, but there is 2 characters on the 7 that kind of start off and you're like, okay, they could be important. They have some, especially in the first 4 episodes, have some relatively bigger plot points and storylines that could span out into other things. And they just don't really go anywhere. One kind of has a conclusion, but not really. And luckily the show already has a season 2, so that's exciting. I can't wait. I'll be there day 1. And then I feel another one is just kind of forgotten. You could say she kind of has an ending, but there you go. I have a little bit of a spoiler. It's a she, but it's not really. Like, they just kind of forget about them. So that's why, and maybe that's comic book storyline. So I almost wish that they took the approach of they're either just going to be weird side characters that have some effect on the plot, or they are going to be main characters along for the ride. It kind of felt like they wanted the best of both worlds. Sometimes they would just be this character off the side that'd be comedic relief or something to reveal a twist, like, I found out this information. Or they're just a side character, or they are a main character where we're doing deep dives, and you're like, okay, I could be interested. Where is this going? And it doesn't really go anywhere. So that would be my cons. But overall, really good show. I'm going to get into spoilers now, so I'm going to take a water break, and then I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and then that's your last chance. So here we go. H2O, H2O. 3, 2, 1. Let's get into spoilers for The Boys. So, wild stuff that I have to shout before I forget that you'll see in the show. A girl literally she's riding a guy on his face, and because she's a soup, she's so powerful, she crushes his face and kills him. That's one. There's one guy that tells a story about he was having sex with an ice girl. When she orgasms, she turns into ice, froze his dick off. That's 2. And then 3, the other one that would stand out would be there is a guy named The Deep. He is like Aquaman. He has gills on his body. And at one moment, this girl, pretty much just sleeping with him because he's a freak, she starts to put her fingers into his gill and then masturbate, and he's trying to fight it off, and it's kind of like a rape scene, but then it's not really. That's just a few of the things you'll see. And that's where if you stuck around even further and you haven't watched the show and you didn't enjoy any of that and that sounds cheesy or that sounds lame or it sounds gross, don't do it, because there's many things in here. Kids are dying. Kids are being abused in the show. Lots of violence. But to me, they made it all work really well. Like I was talking about earlier in the non-spoilers, the world building fit. Nothing ever felt out of place. Even when, and I'd have to give that a big compliment that I should say in my non-spoilers, it can get wacky and really weird and really comedic, but it can flip back into being really dramatic, really serious, scary at times in an instant. You look at something like I was talking about those scenes, but then you have a scene, episode 4, the airplane scene, which is great. I'll say the two characters that I was talking about in my my non-spoilers were Queen Mav and the Deep. Before I get into that episode 4 thing, Queen Mav, I don't know what her deal is. She gets that big moment in episode 4 with Homelander. She's very much questioning herself, but I don't feel like we have a resolution. She goes to Starlight and just says like, "Oh, I'm the one that's kind of supposed to be the bitch on this team or something." Like, kind of saying like you're supposed to be the annoying, perky one. Kind of saying like I know who I am, but it's like. You didn't really know who you are, in my opinion. It doesn't feel figured out. It feels like when season 2 picks up, you'll still be lost. So it was her, and then with the Deep, he was comedic relief. He was fun, but then when we got to the end, and I love the stuff where he tries to save the dolphin, and that lobster friend of his, he tries to save him. He's like, "Oh, I'll take that one." No, that one right there. Takes him. The guy, of course, just kills him right in front of him. It was fun. I wish that, because the only thing, I haven't seen anything because I want to look up one fact before I start to review this, that there's the scene in the first episode where Starlight gets there. She's kind of in awe. She's becoming a superhero, and the Deep is showing around. She goes, "Oh, I had a crush on you." And she turns around, the Deep has his penis out, which is, one, really good as far, not really good, but as far as what it goes into the storyline, some good commentary on kind of like the Me Too movement, things like that. I thought that was done really well of you show. And I thought they were going to kind of cheat out and do that. And she's like, "No," and stand up. No, she goes through the terrible experience, and she makes that a point to tell the public and make that a part of her journey. So I like that. They could have, and not that I want to see that, they cuts away. I don't need a rape scene. I don't, like, those are scenes I don't need in movies, to be honest. Murder and stuff like that, that's all fun. And, jigsaw and traps and sitting on people's face. But those type of scenes I don't need. So I'm glad that wasn't a big factor, which that sexual assault, rape does come up a few times, but we didn't see any scenes. It's all implied or after effects. Even then, it's not even like you see someone bloodily, beaten, and then that is one thing that's skirted. So I think that's good. But you see, so he does that, but I looked up and it's actually Homelander who does that in the comic books, who says you kind of have to give me oral sex to be on the team. He's a scumbag saying it's only going to be a few minutes. He does that, and it's weird because I like the way the show framed Homelander, so I'm not going to say I would have wished they reversed it. But at the same time, the Deep, I felt like the rest of the show, they were trying to make him very comedic value. The stuff with the dolphin, like I said, the lobster, the girl, it was weird stuff. It was all just like, this guy's up to some kooky adventures and enjoy it. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, but he, in my opinion, he sexually assaulted somebody. If he demanded a sexual favor for this girl to be on the team. So that was tough, where it's like, I can't really laugh and enjoy with this character, because at the end of the day, he's a douchebag and a piece of shit in the worst way. There's people that can be douchebags, but when you're going to that level, it's like, I don't know if I can really get into it. And that's why I thought that weird scene with the girl when she's kind of like masturbating on it, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to do this, don't touch me here." I thought that was going to happen, and he'd finally go with kind of maybe realize that, hey, I did something wrong and I need to turn around. And that could be the case at the end. He's like shaving his head and he's looking in the mirror. He's looking really solemn. So in season 2, if they do that turnaround, maybe. What he did was still not right, but I'm hoping that he's going to try and show in this show that he changed and make a big case to Starlight. Like, I'm really sorry. And if he could stick up for it, maybe even sacrifice himself or get really hurt for it. I think he needed to do something so I could enjoy that character right now, where I can't and nothing got resolved. And then at the same time, if you want to just keep making him a piece of shit, fine, do that. But it was this weird middle ground, and they just kind of played the sex scene, I think, in a way of like, I don't know if it was supposed to be assault or if it's a way of like kind of like, very taboo topic, but like I think in a way of like some guys are like, "Oh, don't touch my, like it don't." Okay, very graphic. We're all into don't touch my ass or anything like that. We all know, you've read stuff. There's certain points in there in that body part that can feel good for men, women, and whatnot. But, some people are like, oh, don't do that. And there's like, oh, if you do it, they're like ashamed of it. Or I didn't know that would feel that good. I felt the way they're kind of playing it off in that scene instead of what I got after, which I thought at first they're playing up that he's getting sexually assaulted himself and he's going to see the other side of it. But no, they didn't do that. So, and Queen Mav, like I said, just didn't go anywhere. I thought she was going to get some big stuff because, as I was talking about earlier, it can be really kooky, off the wall. But then we get this scene in episode 4 where they're on a plane. They got to go save Queen Mav and Homelander, who Homelander I'll get into after this scene because this scene kind of sets him up. He is the Superman and she is the Wonder Woman. They're going to go save this. There's a terrorist attack on a plane. They got to go stop before it crashes. They kill the terrorists. Everything's going well. They go in the cockpit. There's one more terrorist. Outlander. Homelander laser beams him and hits the controls. Maybe it's debated if he did that on purpose or not. I think he kind of did because he spanned around. Even though he says later on, like, I made that a positive. There's still part in the speech later on. He's talking about, like, this happened, so we should do this, and we should be in the army. It almost felt like he did it on purpose, or maybe he just didn't care. And that's probably the more point that he just didn't care because what happens is, so they hit these controls, and they're trying to come up with ideas. Maeve is trying to come up with ideas what you could do. And he's just not really into it. And he decides, I'm going to take you and we're just going to go. And we're going to let all these people die. And it's a terrible scene as you see the people start to realize. And he's doing his Superman like, it's going to be okay. No, I'm just going to go back and we're making a plan. But he's just walking through the plane. And then Maeve has this idea that they set up this woman and a daughter. They're a big fan of her. She has a doll of Maeve. And just like, at least take these two, like save them. And he's like, what, these two for you? Like, you're just going to die with the rest of them. And then there's this great scene where he's telling Maeve, like, we're going to go. I'm going to go or you're going to die, like all of them. And the woman's just like, take my daughter. Just please at least take my daughter. And, that's the other reason. Homelander's like, why would I take them? Just so they could tell the rest of the world that I left everyone else to die. And it's not in a way where he is really regretful about this. He's like, well, we tried. Let's go. You can see he's completely emotionless about this aspect, which is great because at the beginning when he is kind of being more villainous, you think, he's just going to be the cold-hearted, powerful guy. But they do change it that he does have emotions about other things. It's very key to what he does feel for and what he doesn't. And then they just leave and the plane blows up and all those people die. And it was crazy and it was shot really well. And that's where the show to me, I think, was really good. But that is what kicked it into another gear of, okay, we can do this very over-the-top, fourth wall, almost breaking comics on superheroes or humor, a meta humor, but then we can also get into this. And that's why it kind of reminds me of Deadpool, because I think something like Deadpool 2, which I think is better, does that with the Vanessa stuff. So, and even Deadpool 1, the love story is probably the best part of that. So it was in that vein. And Homelander, I really enjoyed. I like that. It just starts out the first episode. You're kind of told, I think, as it reveals, maybe he meant it in a different way. But Carl Urban's character, Butcher, is like, none of them have a record other than him. And I kind of took that as like, oh, he's the only good guy. But I think that kind of just meant like, oh, we have no proof that he's a bad guy. So, because we learn later on, he's definitely a bad guy. So, first episode, he's just good. He's talking to Starlight, blah, blah, blah. Seems like a great guy. First episode ends with him. What is the girl? She's from Karate Kid. Oh, no. Elizabeth Shue, Madeline. Madeline is like their Nick Fury. She has a disagreement with the mayor because they're pretty much just like farming superhero. Not farming. That's something else with Colin P. But they're like using them as assets, and they're saying, hey, your crime rate is up by 70% this year. You need to say something to your people. Like, you need to get something, so you should have this superhero, and we will do it for $300 million. And they're kind of saying, and then they're going back and forth, blah, blah, blah. And then they do decide on something, and after he says there's something called Compound V, which is the crux of this story. I don't know where that accent came in there, but it's the crux of the story. There's a big cover-up that really these people aren't soups, that they've been being made and made from a factory. They weren't just born, because they lots of times are going to religious groups saying, God gave me these powers, we're a gift to mankind. No, it's a bunch of scientists cooked all these people in a lab, and then there's a thing called Compound V that they can take, and it's a steroid, and it enhances their powers and kind of gets them hooked as junkies. This mayor knows that. He's saying, I want a superhero, but I will pay $200 million for that superhero instead of $300 million and not reveal your secret. So at one point, they kind of meet in the middle, but Homelander, as he's like obsessed with Madeline, who is kind of, it is his lover, but I almost got the vibe that they were saying it's kind of his like mother in a way, because he's probably known her since he was a kid. Like, I don't think she raised him, because they do specifically say Homelander was raised in a scientific lab, unlike the rest of them. That was a mistake. The scientist guy says, and you can clearly see because he kind of goes off the handle. But he had a mother-like relationship, and I think that's why he's obsessed with his baby, and he hates this baby that she has. And I guess that could have been a super, but he's just always peering at him like, that baby's for sure gonna die, and it did. It died because he let it explode, and because he didn't care at the end. We'll get into that. But so that happens. He kills the mayor, and then you're like, man, he's just full and cold-blooded bad. And that's where I thought for a little while we're going to get, okay, I like still seeing him being the nice Superman and then a bad guy, but we're going to get, excuse me, that's going to be our type of villain. But as we continue, I'm going to take a drink of water. As we continue, you get to see the layers point back. And not that he's right, but you see flashbacks to him being experimented on. Very Kilgrave-like in Jessica Jones, when you start to see, you know what, he's a super bad guy, but it's kind of that way he was raised. There was no choice. Everyone has a choice, but it's just nature versus nurture. He was poked and prodded. He was kept in a room. Literally, the only thing in his room was a human, like a shooting range thing they'd use in the police station to use like target practice. That's all he has to practice with his eyes. He's just a rat. He's just kept there, experiment on. That's his life. So you can see why he's wired the way he's wired. And yeah, he just was a level character, whether it was relationship with Madison, whether stuff they talked about with Maeve as far as being past relationship. I thought they did a good job, and that actor did a really good job of switching back and forth. Oh, man. Excuse me, I got a huge bug in my throat. I don't know where that came from. It's probably the heat in here. I'm sweating. Summer in Kelowna, I'll tell you. So, great character, great villain. Very excited to see where he's going to go. What else do I want to talk about? Spoilers. I'm trying to think. I really like what they did with the main character. And here's the other hook for episode 1 is, the ending, but also just this guy. Oh, God, what is it? Huey has a girlfriend, loves her. The episode just starts with him talking about just regular stuff. They're on the sidewalk. They're holding hands. An A-Train runs by because he's trying to get some V-Pal. Like, he's just hyped up on this drug. Runs so fast, he runs into this guy's girlfriend, destroys her. You see blood and gets everywhere, bones. What a way for an episode to start. Excuse me. I thought that was a good tying up as far as them always being connected. I love that he saved A-Train in the end. I thought, as far as, once again, his motivation's okay. He wants to get revenge for his girlfriend because they try to pay him off. Oh, just be quiet. It was a mistake. But he knows these people are screwed up. And as you can see throughout the show, almost every hero has done something regrettable or something you could say is villainous. And it's very much, that's why I say Watchmen. These boys, the characters of the boys, are kind of the who watches the Watchmen, who watches the Seven, and that's why it's just everyone thinks they're superheroes and what they do is good and grand and we shouldn't question it, but they're constantly killing people. A-Train, just to cover up something in a really dark but cool scene, he runs really quick, gets a bunch of drugs, and makes his girlfriend overdose. She has no chance. She just literally, he says, I love you. It goes quick. She looks and there's needles in her arm. And these characters are doing constantly bad things. So you can see why he gets into this. You can see as it progresses. Then you also see he is still a kid. He's supposed to be maybe younger, late or early mid-20s. And he kills Vanisher, who is a superhero who can vanish if he's naked and kind of a weird, pervy guy. But at the end of the day, he does kill him. They implant a bomb in him. And that's why I like that it wasn't just a full-on switch, but it wasn't... The motivations were right, but it wasn't too much where it came off as whiny when he was worried about. They completely, at one point, he was worried. It switched, and we're doing this, and then he kind of goes back and forth as far as... Because all he knows is he goes from superheroes are great. He's a massive fan to superheroes are the worst to he meets Starlight, which I hate their meeting. I hate it. Maybe that's the way it happens in comics, but literally, like I said, you have Starlight, who her character is basically at the beginning. She's a hero. She gets promoted to the 7th. That's great. It's all about, she kind of learning, like I said, she gets sexually assaulted and learning this is not what it's all cracked up to be. I have to wear this skimpy outfit. I have to say this. I got to look like this. I can't say this. I got to say I've never had sex before marriage, everything like that. So she has to change everything about her. I don't like that these two main characters just coincidentally, who this is the time where he's also looking into the Seven, just meet on some random bench, and that's how they're talking to each other. It's fine. I just wish there was a bit more of a creative way to do it, but you go from him being a mega fan to him absolutely hating them while still being regrettable that he killed somebody and he's having PTSD, seeing his girlfriend, seeing Vanisher, seeing blood cover things, to being in the middle as so far as learning all this stuff about all these heroes being so bad and wrong, but then he meets Starlight, who is a good person, who is trying to do good, and that makes him question, one, should I even be doing this, so I'm going to run away, and two, not all of them are bad. So I liked that theme throughout. Starlight, great theme as well, as far as just trying to discover who she was. I already talked about this as far as it's not all it's cracked up to be, and she considers quitting many times. And Karl Urban, that's some good stuff, because anytime a show starts and they go, oh, I'm my wife, something's wrong, and that's why I thought they revealed his story at the right amount of times. They'd reveal enough, wait a few episodes, reveal a little more, and I at least knew that when he's talking about his wife's been missing. In these type of shows, superhero shows, they're never missing. They're going to pop up at some point. And I love the reveals. I love the flashbacks. He did a great job of being that comedic aspect, but also being emotional and dramatic and a badass when he need to. And this dynamic of trying to find out what happened to Becca, Homeland, who raped Becca and got her impregnated. We get these different stories from different characters that she miscarried, or the baby clawed out of her and the baby choked on too much blood and she died along with it. That's revealed to be a big lie, but you can see he's just driven by this, and I liked all the connection with all the other characters. Those characters, they all have motivations, not as deep as some of the other ones in the with Huey and Butcher and Homeland. They're not as big, and Starlight not as big as those ones, but they're still enough. Hey, they want to stop these bad heroes that have done these things that they know about. So that was good, but the way they leave that, he's just trying to find out about it, and then the finale is why I wanted to potentially read the comic books, because the way it ends as far as, okay, what's the deal? This is not the case. Highlander, Homelander finds out that Becca is alive, his wife, that's his crux. He's been looking for the whole show, or just looking for revenge because they probably killed her or she went missing. He finds her, and the son is also alive. So you have this fun dynamic that Butcher has his wife that he's been looking for 8 years or thought was dead, and that she is a child, but that child belongs to Homelander, who is a villain who literally took this Compound V and went around, because at one point the boys have the heroes dead have the Seven, I guess they are heroes, but have them dead to rights, found out that they've been producing this compound, all this shady stuff. But then what, and that's the thing I like about Homelander. He is Superman, but he's more like the Batman approach too. He's kind of a 50-50, where he's always thinking ahead, always ahead of the curve, thinking, okay, if this goes wrong, what can I do? He's gone to other countries and planted Compound V to create super terrorists and super villains. And the law can't go through with, what is it, Vogue? I can't remember now. I can't remember the name. I've watched the entire show, and I forgot the name of the organization. He's also very Ozymandias-like in the way he carries himself and is planning for it, and kind of just talking about, if we have to do this and it means killing a bunch of people but it saves others, then let's do it. Sometimes it feels like it's bullshit and he just wants to get his way, but sometimes it feels like he believes it, and that's what's great. To me, it doesn't come off as bad writing. He just feels like this is a character that's really torn, and they talk about that a lot. But where was I going with this? So he finds all this information, he brings him there, and he has a son with Becca, who's Butcher is his wife, and it's just fun dynamic. I don't know if Becca's going to last that long, because I feel like the boy's got to get back into action, but I liked that he didn't kill him, and once again, it shows that he is, at times, a very piece of shit guy, a huge piece of shit, but he's still doing things, not too many nice things, but just enough, like keeping Butcher alive. He didn't have to, but he still did. Why? We'll find out next season, but he's still... He is a villain doing sometimes heroic things, but he thinks he is a hero that sometimes has to do villainous things. But I think that's slowly going away. I can't think of anything else spoiler-wise that I want to shout out. Really enjoyed it. Had a great time. Liked most of the characters. Great pacing in the episodes. Only at 8 episodes, so I thought that worked out well. And like I said, this is up there with Daredevil. This is up there with some of the better seasons of The Flash, Jessica Jones. What should I give this? I'm going to take a water break, and then I'll have a score ready. I'm going to give this a 9.5. I'm going pretty high because I think it's pretty close to being perfect. It's a show that It got me hooked to the series. I can't wait to see more. I'm happy there's a season 2 coming. I want to read the comic books now because, as I already said, the world very fleshed out, characters all have motivations, and it's a very fun, unique world. Like, you have Haley Joel Osment, who is this character who can just read people, their minds or their experiences by touching them. But even the way they set them up with this signing, this Comic-Con-like experience was really fun. So yeah, 9.5, like I said, some CGI issues that I think stuck out and thought that didn't need to happen. And some characters that I thought, we kind of wasted time. The episodes could have even been a little shorter if we didn't waste time on them. But yeah, that's what I'm giving it. Check out the show if you have listened the whole way through and you didn't watch it. If you like this review, please go subscribe. All the details are down below in the description for the video and audio feeds. Thank you very much for tuning in. And until you hear from me next time, it'll not be boring.